Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, March 11th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 175 days. The football Minnesota game, the basketball Minnesota games today, but we'll get to that. The game against Michigan in 261 days. The Buckeye basketball team, as I mentioned, will tip off against the Big Ten tournament run later on today against Minnesota. The Gophers outlasted Northwestern last night in the opening round game, 51-46. If you missed it, you didn't miss anything. It looked exactly like a 51-46 basketball game. Tony Gerdeman is in Indianapolis to cover that one for Buckeye Scoop. We will have him on tomorrow morning to recap that game and potentially preview a quarterfinal matchup against Purdue if they win today. But today we are talking football. The Ohio State program is a national recruiting machine. They just signed their best recruiting class since 2018. They have the opportunity to add to that when the top overall player in the class announces his decision sometime later on this spring or summer. And they've pulled players out of every region in the country in recent years. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My guest today just wrote about one of those areas at Buckeye Scoop. His name is Nick Bitar. Nick, since this is your first time on the show, can you let people know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm new to the sports journalism industry. I've only written 2 articles for Buckeye Scoop so far, but I definitely plan on writing more. I'm only a high school student, but I'm set to enroll in IU in the fall, so not too long, but plan a minor in sports journalism and ready to talk some football recruiting.
Sounds good. Yeah, your first you wrote your first piece a few weeks ago, and then the one came out this week. It was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a good thing. Well, I should have him on the show to talk about that. And it was a piece about Ohio State's recent success in raiding the state of Arizona in football recruiting. And that is a spot they had not had a scholarship player from since the late 90s until pretty recently. Back then, it was defensive end Joe Brown. Before that, there was a quarterback named Joe Germain, who you may remember. But then in the last couple of years, all of a sudden, they have pulled a ton of talent out of that state. So for people who may not follow recruiting super closely, can you let them know about some of the players that Ohio State has gotten out of Arizona recently?
Yeah, so Kyion Grayes recently committed last Sunday. He joins Jack Miller, Lathan Ransom, and Denzel Burke from the 2020 and 2021 classes. And the Buckeyes continue the raid in the Arizona state that they haven't done since the turn of the century.
Yeah, and those guys you mentioned, all the 3 guys that they've already brought in, and those are names that are. I mean, Jack Miller's competing for the starting quarterback job. Lathan Ransom was, as a true freshman, on the field as a safety in the national championship game. Like, okay, these are guys who are going to be contributors. And Denzel Burke, a corner, he's enrolled early, so we'll get to see him in spring practice coming up in about a week. And then Kyion Grayes, obviously, kind of a top 100 receiver. He just committed, most recent commitment for Ohio State. And they very nearly pulled a 5-star running back out of Arizona last year, too. Let people know if they don't remember who that was.
Well, I'm sure a lot do, and I'm sure there was a lot of stressful times around that recruitment with Bijan Robinson, the 5-star running back, who went to the same high school as Lathan Ransom. In late July and mostly through June, there was just so much buzz about him to Ohio State, and then of course, with less than a week left, there's just a bunch of pull for him to stay closer to home. And that was a heartbreaker for a lot of Ohio State recruiting fans. So he ended up signing with Texas. And obviously he's having good success there playing as a freshman, but be a lot better if he was playing in the Scarlet and Gray.
Yeah, that was one that Ohio State really, really wanted. And he started out a little bit slow last year. And then I'm just going to read his stats from the last 2 games. And you, the listener at home, can decide if this is good. Against Kansas State in the regular season finale, 9 carries for 172 yards. That is a smooth 19.1 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. And then in the Alamo goal against Colorado, 10 carries, 183 yards, a huge plummet all the way down to 18.3 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. You'll probably be okay if you can keep averaging 18-ish yards a carry there. One of the things that has helped make Arizona such a fertile recruiting area recently is that the in-state schools have not been able to keep those top players home. The 2021 class, the best in-state player Arizona State signed was ranked number 15 in the state. Arizona's top in-state player was ranked 20th in the state. The year before, Arizona also signed their best player was 20th in the state. Arizona's best was the 22nd best player in the state. I mean, there's functionally like 15, 20 players who are headed out of state at the very top of the list for the last couple of years. And Arizona just had a coaching change that obviously going from Kevin Sumlin to Jedd Fisch, that transition can obviously hurt you in recruiting. Herm Edwards has not really been able to lock that state down either. I mean, and that's a growing part of the country. So it seems like until those in-state schools can kind of get it together, it's still going to be pretty wide open for the Buckeyes and other national schools to pull some pretty talented players out of there.
Right. So, yeah, I mean the talent increase in that state just goes along with that as well. With those powers being down, it's allowing a class like 2020 that included 37 Power Five signees, and most of them ended up signing out of the Pac-12. Only eight of the top 12 signed out of the Pac-12, and just in 2017 they signed all top 10 of the top players in that state. So it's easy to see that the national powers are coming and taking over what should be the West recruiting land.
Yeah, it's interesting that the general trend in recruiting has been that, the Big Ten was sort of falling off because the population shifts to the South and the West, which has now just forced those Big Ten schools to go to the South and the West, and the SEC schools are out there too. And so the people are moving out there, but as they say, no one is actually from Arizona. It's like a little like Florida. No one's actually from Florida. They're from somewhere else, and so you have Ohio State fans down there. People whose families are from Ohio, so that probably helps pulling people out of there as well. And this is not a unique thing for Arizona, where the in-state schools are maybe a little down, and people can take advantage of that. This was one of my favorite trends to follow in recruiting, actually. When Georgia was down during Mark Richt's time, Ohio State got Von Bell, Raekwon McMillan, guys like that out of there. Southern California with USC and UCLA down recently. Buckeyes have pulled Wyatt Davis, Chris Olave out of there. More recently, Washington and Wazoo both had coaching changes in the last couple of years. Ohio State has gotten G. Scott, Emeka Egbuka, and they're still hoping to land JT Tuimoloau, who is the top prospect in the nation, we mentioned earlier in the show. When Texas and Texas A&M were down, it was Jeff Okudah, J.K. Dobbins, Barrett Browning, and then more recently, Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And to me, the trend there is, okay, if the local people are down, you can go in and poach those like one or two guys. Like, you're not going to build your class around Texas players or Arizona players, but you get your core of your class, and then they're just, they're like the sprinkles on the top of the sundae. And, that can be what takes it from a good class or very good class to like, now it's like one of the best classes that they've ever had. That seems like that's sort of where those states fit in. Is that kind of how you see that?
Right. Yeah. It's an excellent recruiting strategy, in my opinion. I mean, you're not going to consistently pull the guys from Louisiana and Alabama. So when you take advantage of the guys who are, when their in-state powers are down, then it allows you to have more success in that area. And hopefully they do so with JT Tuimoloau, who's just a freak of nature.
Yeah, they're playing a spring football season in Washington, and JT Tuimoloau is playing in that spring season. They just had their first game last weekend, and he's a defensive end. He's, I don't know, 280 pounds, something like that, 275. And I saw a highlight of him playing tight end, and he caught a pass down the seam and just outraced everyone to the end zone. And it's like, you shouldn't be able to do that at that size. Like, I don't know exactly how good the competition is there, but it also is like, that kind of doesn't matter. Like, if you're that big and can move that fast, like, yep, okay, that looks like the number one player in the country to me. Nick, first of all, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on with Buckeye Scoop, and looking forward to reading more of your stuff. Will you let people know? I know you just started a brand new Twitter account, so let people know where they can find you on Twitter, and then that'll make it easier to find your stuff at Buckeye Scoop in the future.
Yep. So first off, thanks for having me. Love coming on these pods, love listening to them. And you can find me on Twitter at Nick Bitar1, NickBitar1. And I'm still getting that situated, but hoping to keep writing for Buckeye Scoop and growing my career.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you on the Buckeye Scoop team, and veteran move spelling the Twitter handle right there. Well done. That's a lesson that most people don't learn until much later in their sports journalism career. So good job with that as well. So you can find Nick's article at buckeyescoop.com. I'll link it in the post for this podcast on the front page, as well as follow him on Twitter at NickBitar1. And also make sure to check out all of our other great content at Buckeye Scoop. It is going to be a busy week. Nevada Buck just had a really, really interesting nugget, a big recruiting nugget about the next boom that could be coming for Ohio State in recruiting. He dropped that one yesterday on our Ask the Insiders board. You can find that there. And as I mentioned, Tony Gerdeman is at the Big Ten tournaments today, covering Ohio State and Minnesota. He will have all sorts of coverage at Buckeye Scoop, and we will have him on the show tomorrow morning to break down the Minnesota game. And if there is a Purdue game later on tomorrow, then we'll break that one down for you as well on tomorrow's morning show. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. Just search Buckeye Scoop. You'll find all of our great shows there. You can subscribe right there. Also, leave us a 5-star rating and review. And as we've been saying, make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel as well. That's totally free. Just go to youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop, hit that subscribe button on our channel, and then you'll get a notification every time we put up a new video. So today, for example, we've got new podcasts coming out. We've got Tony. We'll have post-game stuff from the Big Ten tournament. We'll have all sorts of stuff. We've got recruiting camps coming up. Tons of great content. If you are an Ohio State fan, any kind of Ohio State fan of any Ohio State program, we're probably going to have good stuff for you there on our YouTube channel, and it's all free. All you have to do is subscribe. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.